she's still posting. So she's deleted her personal socials, though she was very active using them, trying to shame people like me who she didn't feel talked about abuse in the proper way. Hello, heal thyself, preacher.
I don't mean to be superficial, but I look at the two of them and they look like a colossal mess. They look like very heavy drinkers to me.
Yeah.
They look
see it.
They look unhygienic to me.
Yes, they do look unhygienic.
It speaks to just a sort of chaos, like an emotional, intellectual chaos. That guy was missing for 5 days. If law enforcement knew where he was, we would have known. And I think the feds raiding the house upstate,
Yes.
ramming their way in, I think that was an FU to those two for him being wherever he was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as you said, innocent people don't run.
No.
You know?
No.
My opinion, innocent people don't run.
Not been any prior pretrial detention finding. So on the balance, I cannot find that the state has proven by clear and convincing evidence that there are no release conditions that would reasonably protect the safety of any other person in the community. So I am denying the state's motion. I'll take care of that order. That'll be published tomorrow. So Mr. Busfield, I'll set the following conditions of release. You're authorized for release on your own recognizance.
Witness state that the boy's mother said, "I'm going to get his." That looks bad, and apparently the judge bought into it.
I don't think this is going to be one's an angel and one's a devil.
I don't expect victims to be angels. I never get an angel victim. This case is riddled with problems. That doesn't mean it didn't happen.
The courtroom in Albuquerque, New Mexico was so quiet you could hear a pin drop, but the emotions swirling inside were loud enough to scream. For anyone who grew up watching Little House on the Prairie, seeing Melissa Gilbert, our beloved, resilient Laura Ingalls, sitting in a cold, sterile gallery with her hands white-knuckled and her eyes red from crying, it felt like a glitch in the universe. This wasn't a scripted drama on a sun-drenched farm. This was a high-stakes legal battle for the life and liberty of her husband, Emmy-winning actor Timothy Busfield.
I want to thank all of the friends, the co-workers who worked with Tim, our relatives, people who have been coming out of the woodwork, showering us with so much love.
Is it possible that Mr. Busfield inappropriately touched SL on the set of The Cleaning Lady?
No. Busfield's attorneys say the parents of the alleged victims have a history of fraud and wanted revenge after their boys were recast. The prosecution rejected that claim, pointing out the alleged abuse was reported by a therapist, not the parents.
The parents are not the ones making these allegations. The kids didn't even disclose to their parents. They disclosed to a neutral third party.
For 7 long days, Busfield had been locked away in a high-security cell, facing the kind of charges that don't just end careers, they end lives. We're talking about 2 counts of criminal sexual contact of a minor and a count of child abuse. But just minutes ago, the energy in that room shifted from despair to an explosive, tear-filled triumph. The judge leaned into his microphone and uttered the words Melissa had been praying for, released on his own recognizance.
Prohibit your travel. I understand you may not live here, but you will need to report to pretrial services here. You're not to possess any firearms or dangerous weapons. You're not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You must notify the court of your address. Not to discuss the case with any witnesses. That's what the attorneys and their investigators are there to do. And we can't have you tamper with any of that. And then you need to maintain weekly contact with your attorney in this case. So, Mr. Busfield, do you have any questions for me?
The relief was so violent that Melissa didn't just smile, she collapsed into a fit of weeping that shook her entire frame. But do not be fooled. This is not the end of the story.
People point out that Melissa has nothing to do with the allegations against Timothy, which is not true. She is repeatedly referenced in the police affidavit in support of the charges, accusing her of being part of the grooming by taking these 2 7-year-old boys out for dinners and buying them presents, not specifically saying that she knew they were being abused, but definitely pointing to her as fostering the close relationship. So it's not true that she has nothing to do with it. And she has nothing suddenly to say about abuse, Maureen. Absolutely nothing. She's deleted the socials.
She then deletes her Instagram account, but then reactivates the Modern Prairie, whatever her thing is, to show us the contents of her refrigerator, as one does when one's husband is facing multiple accounts of child abuse. That police affidavit, by the way, I believe the part where Melissa's involved too, because when the police in Albuquerque were interviewing Timothy in New York via speakerphone, he said, Melissa is here with me.
She heard everything. November 3rd.
Heard everything.
While Timothy Busfield might be sleeping in his own bed tonight, he is walking out of that jail with a GPS monitor on his ankle and a list of restrictions so long it would make your head spin. What did the defense reveal in those final moments that forced the judge's hand? And what is the unequivocal denial captured on a secret police recording that is turning this entire case upside down? You need to stay right here because we are diving deep into the most controversial Hollywood legal battle of 2026. If you are new to the channel, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. It's free, takes a second, and means the world to us. Thanks, if you did. Now back to the show. To understand the absolute magnitude of what happened in that New Mexico courtroom on Tuesday, January 20, 2026, we have to go back to where it all began. Timothy Busfield isn't just some random actor, he is Hollywood royalty. From the nerdy charm of Revenge of the Nerds to the high-stakes political drama of The West Wing, he has spent 40 years building a reputation as a consummate professional and a brilliant director. So when the Albuquerque Police Department issued a warrant for his arrest earlier this month, the shockwaves didn't just hit Hollywood, they hit every household that has followed his and Melissa Gilbert's 12-year marriage.
Pretty much everything they alleged in his defense, we kind of knew, but we did not know that the parents of the two boys are a couple of, as the defense lawyers, I'm sorry, adequately said, con men. The mother and the father both appear to be serial fraudsters.
The allegations are, quite frankly, sickening. They center on the set of the Fox series The Cleaning Lady, where Busfield served as both a director and an actor. According to the criminal complaint, the parents of two 11-year-old twin boys, identified in documents only as VL and SL, claimed that Busfield had engaged in a pattern of grooming and inappropriate touching. The prosecution painted a dark picture, alleging that the abuse started when the boys were just 7 and 8 years old. They claimed that Busfield would find ways to be alone with them, often in a bedroom on the set, and that he used his power as a director to keep them quiet. Assistant District Attorney Savannah Brandenburg Koch was relentless in the hearing, calling the evidence strong and specific. She even brought up a heartbreaking detail about one of the twins suffering from bedwetting and PTSD, which the prosecution argues is a direct psychological scar from the alleged abuse. But as the hearing unfolded, the defense team, led by attorney Amber Feyerberg, began to systematically dismantle the prosecution's narrative with the precision of a surgeon. They didn't just offer denials, they offered evidence that left the courtroom stunned. The most explosive moment came when they played audio recordings from the boys' very first interviews with police back in November 2024. In a clear, audible voice, when asked by an investigator if Uncle Tim had ever touched their private areas, both boys gave what the defense called an unequivocal denial. One boy responded, "Yeah, but he doesn't touch those parts," while the second boy said, "No, he's never touched me, never." So if the boys denied it then, why are we here now? That is the million-dollar question that AAP is uncovering. The defense is alleging a motive that is as old as Hollywood itself: money and revenge. They argue that the allegations only surfaced after the twins were replaced on the show and the parents realized the gravy train had come to a screeching halt. They pointed to a Warner Bros. Internal investigation that found zero evidence of misconduct. They even brought in a witness, Alan Cadillo, the director of photography for The Cleaning Lady, who gave a testimony that felt like a grenade going off in the prosecutor's lap. Cadillo testified that the set was highly regimented and that it would be physically impossible for a director to be alone with a child for more than a few seconds. He also described the boy's father as an aggressive set parent who would force his children to hug adults on set even if they didn't want to. It was a complete 180-degree turn from the prosecution's story. Throughout all of this, Melissa Gilbert sat in the gallery, a silent but powerful presence. She wasn't just there as a wife, she was there as a strategist. It was revealed during the hearing that Melissa herself had been the one to reach out to former colleagues like Cadillo, urging them to tell the truth and provide affidavits for her husband. She has been his primary protector when he was at his most vulnerable. When Timothy was brought into the room, he looked like a shadow of his former self. His signature hair was disheveled, and he looked smaller in that orange jumpsuit. He caught Melissa's eye just once, a brief moment of connection before he had to face the judge. Melissa was heard nervously asking a friend, "Do you think it will be okay?" The friend's response, "It'll be okay," seemed like wishful thinking at the time, but it proved to be prophetic. The judge, David A. Murray, had a massive decision to make. On one hand, you have allegations involving children, which are handled with the utmost severity in New Mexico. On the other hand, you have a man with zero prior criminal history who drove 2,000 miles across the country from his home in New York just to surrender himself and face these lies head-on. Judge Murray acknowledged that the charges are inherently dangerous, but he ultimately ruled that the state failed to prove that Timothy Busfield was a danger to the community if released. The moment the words "released on his own recognizance" were spoken, the courtroom erupted in a way that felt more like a church service than a legal proceeding. Melissa Gilbert didn't just cry, she wept with a raw, guttural joy that seemed to release a week's worth of built-up terror. Her hands were clutched together in a prayer-like gesture as she leaned on her supporters. She had arrived looking glum-faced and exhausted, but in that moment, she looked like she had finally found her breath again. Outside the courthouse later that evening, she was seen thanking the judge, the lawyers, and the fans who have stood by them during what she called a nightmare. But let's talk about the fine print of this release, because Timothy Busfield is far from a free man. The conditions of his release are some of the strictest we've seen in a Hollywood case. He is strictly prohibited from having any contact, direct or indirect, with the alleged victims or their families. He cannot have any unsupervised contact with any children under the age of 18. This effectively puts a halt to any directing work involving younger actors. He is barred from consuming any alcohol or illegal drugs. While he is allowed to return to his home in New York, he is under the constant supervision of a pretrial services office in Albuquerque and must return for every single court date. He cannot possess any firearms or dangerous weapons. This is a man whose life has been put under a microscope. Even the most intimate details of his marriage were laid bare in court documents to prove he wasn't a risk. Reports showed that he and Melissa have a satisfying sex life and that they simply enjoy cuddling in their later years. It was an embarrassing detail to have made public, but in the world of criminal defense, you leave no stone unturned. As Timothy Busfield walks out of that detention center and heads back to the modern prairie life he and Melissa have built, the question remains, can a reputation ever truly recover from this? Amazon MGM has already started the process of digitally erasing him from his latest film, You Deserve Each Other. His talent agency has dropped him. The industry is moving on as if he's already been convicted. But Melissa Gilbert is not moving on. She is digging in. She wrote in her letter to the judge that Tim has the strongest moral compass of any human I have ever known. She is betting her entire legacy on his innocence. The battle lines have been drawn in the sand. On one side, you have the prosecution and a set of parents who claim their children were victimized. On the other, you have a Hollywood legend and his fiercely loyal wife who claim they are the targets of a high-stakes extortion plot. This trial, which is set to begin later this year, will be the ultimate test for America's sweetheart. Will the little house survive this storm, or is the prairie about to burn down for good? We are going to be here for every single update, every leaked audio clip, and every courtroom revelation. The truth is out there, and AAP is going to find it. Thank you so much for watching.